The New York Mets continue their dominant start to the season at Citi Field, and now they get to play host to the Philadelphia Phillies.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com. for 50% off your first year. Well, the New York Mets remain red hot, playing in front of their fans at Citi Field. 9-1 to start the season at home. When have the Mets done that before? 1986, anyone? Also, the last time they have swept the Cardinals in a 4-game set. Now, back in 1986, there was a lot more heat to a Mets-Cardinals rivalry than there is today, but good sign for sure that the Mets are off to a start that good playing at home. When you become a team that is dominant at home, that is when you truly are a team that can contend in the division and a team that is really feared in the National League East. So it's a really good sign the Mets have started out this way, and now the Phillies come into town. This is the first real benchmark series of the season. The two teams that have gotten off to a great start in the NL East going head-to-head. We're going to talk about that to close out the show. It's going to be a lot of fun. But first, let's talk about the 4-game sweep. Clay Holmes was on the mound on Sunday, turned in his best start of the season. For the first time, he made it through 6 innings and did so on 91 pitches. Allowed 4 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, gave up just 1 run in the 6th inning. At that point, the Mets were already up 3-0, so that run was not too significant. In that 6th inning, he gave up a leadoff double to Brendan Donovan, got a strikeout, but a wild pitch forced the runner to third, and then a ground out scored the run. Nearly gave up another run as there was a well-struck ball to left field, but Brandon Nimmo was really able to time it well. The ball had a lot of hang time, and he was able to leap up and rob a home run that closed the book on Holmes. Great play by Nimmo, who really came through 2 times in this game. There was that big catch, and then he broke a tie. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But first and foremost, let's talk about how the Mets got their early runs. First inning, Francisco Lindor comes through with a leadoff homer, 103.5 miles per hour off the bat, over 400 feet. Looked very similar to the bomb that he hit. That was the walk-off homer a couple days prior. So another just great game by Lindor. Third inning, Tylor gets a base hit. Francisco Lindor comes through, gets a knock that advances him to third. So he had runners on first and third with 1 out when Juan Soto came up. He gets credit for a sac fly, but Tylor really deserves the credit. He did not hit a very deep fly ball, but Taylor, no hesitation, broke for the plate, was able to beat the throw, and that got the Mets their second run. 5th inning, the Mets scored their third one. Juan Soto with a 2-out single, advanced the second on a wild pitch, and then Pete Alonso came through with a well-timed base hit to drive him in. That was Alonso's lone knock of the day, so not as good of a day for Pete, but still a great series overall. Now, Danny Young replaced Clay Holmes in the 7th inning. Had a little bit of a rocky outing, gave up a leadoff single, got a strikeout, walked a batter, then struck out another batter. Carlos Mendoza goes to Jose Butto with a 3-1 lead. Now, I don't have the exact numbers on this because it is very hard sometimes to find an accurate site that tracks inherited runners. But I know that this has been at least the second, if not the third time this year, where Jose Butto has come on and he has given up those inherited runs. Doesn't seem like a real strength of his to come in the middle of the inning. I don't know if that's going to be something the Mets can adjust at some point, but it definitely feels like Butto is better off when he works a clean inning. In this case, he comes in, gives up a double on the first pitch. That scores 2 runs, tying up the game, gets a ground out to get out of that inning. And then he did pitch a 1-2-3 eighth. And prior to that, the Mets got him a lead. So Butto goes home a winner. Mets rallied in the bottom of the 7th. Francisco Lindor, again, 1-out single. I believe that was the infield hit. Juan Soto drew a walk. Then after Pete Alonso struck out, Brandon Nimmo broke that tie, like I mentioned. Huge moment for him because he's really been struggling. And in that spot, 2 out, runners in scoring position opportunity. He picks up Pete Alonso, gets the base hit to drive in Lindor to give the Mets a 4-3 lead. After a Budos scoreless 8th, the Mets got plenty of insurance for Ryan Stanek in the bottom half. Luis Angel Acuna with a leadoff double, but really it was a soft ground ball that the third baseman, who was it? Was it Nolan Gorman that was filling in for Nolan Arenado? It was the wrong Nolan if it was, but whoever was playing third, it was not Arenado. And you could tell when he tried to make the barehanded play. And also the shortstop, Sagazi, was coming in on it too for some reason. There was no one backing up the play. So when they botched the barehand, Acuna was able to get to second base. And since it technically wasn't an error, he gets a double out of it on a ball that barely left the infield. So that was a fun moment. And then Tyrone Taylor decided, oh, yeah, how about I do the same thing? How about I get a hit that barely gets out of the infield, and we'll call it a double too. He hits a little pop-up that gets over the first baseman's head, well placed, and he was hustling out of the box, got to second base with the hustle double, drove in Acuna to really get another key run in after Brett Beatty. Actually, Brett Beatty struck out before Tyrone Taylor's flare. But after Taylor, Luis Torrens drew a walk. Francisco Lindor ripped one in the hole, but the Cardinals made a great play. Sagazi backhand gets the force out at second base. That set up a 2-out RBI situation for Juan Soto. Got himself into a 2-0 count, and then he took some hacks, some absolute hacks. He was trying to hit that 3-run homer, but after he fouled a couple off, he shortened up a little bit, still ripped one with an exit velocity, I believe 107 miles per hour, and he went opposite field, left center field, hits it to the fence, double that scores 2, breaks the game wide open, and the Mets were able to cruise to the 7-4 victory. Just an awesome team win all around. Great defense played again by this team, from Nimmo making that incredible catch, Francisco Lindor doing his thing at shortstop. It was just another really clean game in that regard. And the top of the lineup really came through. Lindor, 3 for 5, moves his average up on the season to 271, his OPS to 747. Juan Soto, 2 for 3 with a walk, average now up to 256. That's going to keep climbing. OPS at 821. Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo both only got 1 hit, but each of those hits was critical. They had RBIs attached to them and a pair of multi-hit days from the bottom of the lineup, Tyrone Taylor and Luis Angel Acuna, who are both swinging the bat really well. The Mets altogether got 11 hits, 3 walks, and we went 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position, and were able to score those 7 runs. So a good way to finish off the Cardinals, a 4-game sweep of a team that was hitting the ball really well, at least going into this series. And the Mets pitching just neutralized it, really. I mean, they gave up 4 runs in a couple of games, but they also had a few games where they were lights out and just continued what we've seen throughout the early going of this season, that they have one of the best bullpens in baseball. Their starting rotation continues to surprise and impress. And this lineup gets the timely hits when they need to. This team playing really good baseball, which is what you want when your top division rival right now comes into town. This is going to be such a fun series to watch. But the big question before it begins, will Jeff McNeil and Francisco Alvarez join the Mets for this crucial series? I want to talk about that in just a minute. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. you're watching on YouTube today, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 13,000 subscribers. We are almost there. I'd love to get there by the end of this series against the Phillies. I appreciate all of you who continue to subscribe. Will Jeff McNeil and or Francisco Alvarez be there against the Phillies this week? If you listened to Carlos Mendoza before the game on Sunday, the answer would be probably not. He said these guys are going to get some more at-bats on their rehab assignment to make sure they're up to speed. But he also said that they would both report to Citi Field on Monday, talk to team officials, and then they would make their decision. And I don't know how you could come to any decision other than bringing Jeff McNeil up when you see what he did on Sunday, because he led off the game with the homer. Next at bat, he doubles, and then he finished his day with a couple of singles. So he goes 4 for 4, and that was the second straight day that he hit a home run, okay, across his rehab assignment between St. Lucie and Binghamton. 9 for 20, so he's hitting 450, 1322 OPS. And again, a large part of that is going 4 for 4. And in Binghamton, he went 6 for 9 across the 2 games with 2 homers and a double. So that really juiced the stats, but it just shows you he seems to be seeing the ball pretty well. Only struck out twice in 20 at-bats. I'm looking at Jeff McNeil, and I think, okay, why send him back to Binghamton or Syracuse and say, oh, you need more time to get ready? To me, it seems like he's good to go. Francisco Alvarez, you can make a case for giving him some more time. He DH'd on Sunday, went 1 for 5. So far across his rehab assignment, he's 7 for 32 between St. Lucie and Binghamton. So that's a 219 average, 619 OPS. He has 7 strikeouts and 32 at-bats. Now that looks like a guy that's going through it a little bit more, that's still trying to find his rhythm. Jeff McNeil goes 4 for 4, and you're going to say hitting Binghamton again. I just don't necessarily buy it. You look at Alvarez, Luis Torrens is in a good rhythm right now. He got an off day on Sunday, so he should be good to go to start the first 2 games of the series. And you could have Hayden Sanger catch the final game, the day game after the night game on Wednesday, and let Alvarez stay in Binghamton or go to Syracuse and get some more at-bats and maybe join you on the road trip. And I think it's just going to DC. So if they wanted to, they could give Alvarez a full week, right? And really let him come along a little bit more, get a bunch of at-bats, and then the Mets would return. They got the rare Friday to Monday 4-game set in DC, and then they come home for a Tuesday to Thursday against the Diamondbacks. But yeah, you could have him come back for that Tuesday if you wanted to. But Jeff McNeil, I feel like you got to get him back. And another thing that to me makes that even more of an obvious decision is the Mets are going to be going up against Aaron Nola tonight. And Jeff McNeil has faced Aaron Nola more than any other pitcher throughout his entire career. He's gotten 43 at-bats against him. He's hitting .326 for his career against Nola with a .431 on-base percentage. So he sees him really well. He had a great game. And while Acuna has been really solid lately and Brett Baty has showed some strides, I just feel like Jeff McNeil is going to give you better at-bats in this series than those guys, particularly in this game against Aaron Nola. I'll talk about the matchup with Nola a little more in the next segment, but Brett Baty's 0 for 7 with 3 strikeouts against Aaron Nola. We don't know if Mark Vientos is going to be good to go yet, dealing with the groin soreness. If he is, I'd start Vientos and Jeff McNeil, and I would keep Baty on the roster as well as Acuna, but I wouldn't start them in this game. I would let it play out where you'd have your veterans in the lineup for the most part, because Aaron Nola's a veteran pitcher, and he might be able to exploit some of the weaknesses of a Baty or an Acuna, but he's going to have a lot tougher time with Jeff McNeil, especially considering what he's done the last couple of days. Seems like he's good to go to me. And then as far as the roster construction, I just don't see the value in having Jose Azocar on the roster. I feel like with what Brett Baty has shown over the past week, it makes more sense to keep him, especially when you have Mark Vientos nursing an injury, because it just gives you your best defensive third baseman. And even for this game, you might decide, he's 0 for 7 against Nola, but Brett Baty is a different hitter now than he was when he saw him last. And he's going to give you your best option at third base defensively. So maybe you do go with Baty at third and McNeil at second. I just think, considering what Azocar's role would be, which is fourth outfielder and pinch runner off the bench, you can have Acuna do those things. Acuna can be your fourth outfielder. He can take some time in center field away from Tylor and Taylor. He can pinch run off the bench because Jeff McNeil is going to be eating into that playing time at second base. And he can find a nice role. I can't possibly see sending Acuna down with how well he has looked lately. I can understand sending Beatty down, but Beatty stands to gain nothing in AAA. Nothing. I mean, sure, you could say, well, he gets into a better rhythm whenever you might need him if something ever was more serious with a Mark Vientos injury. But to me, it just doesn't make sense to send him down when the growth that he needs to show is in the big leagues, even in a limited role. And I really think, and we'll talk about this more if the Mets do make this decision and they do call McNeil up and they send Azekar down, I can kind of go into this a little more in depth. But between center field, second base, and third base, and DH by extension, because you could always DH Vientos some, I feel like you can find 2 starts a week for Beatty, 3 starts a week for Acuna, get Jeff McNeil in there 4 or 5 games, get Tyrone Taylor in there for 4 games, and be fine and be able to get everyone time, keep everybody fresh. You know, Carlos Mendoza likes to play the whole roster, so let's not see him play Jose Azocar like he did this weekend. So that's what I hope happens. I still don't know about Francisco Alvarez. You could talk me into either way on that decision. In some respects, he hasn't really done much on rehab just yet, so giving him some more time to get at bats is not the worst thing. And Luis Torrens has been swinging it pretty well. The other side of it, if you have a day game after a night game, wouldn't you prefer to go with Torrens on Monday, have Francisco Alvarez get a start against a lefty on Tuesday with Christopher Sanchez going, and then you put Torrens back in the lineup day game after a night game and have him work with Griffin Canning, which he's done really well so far this year. Actually, no, David Peterson's going to be the starter on Wednesday. We'll get to the pitching matchups in the next segment. Regardless, to me, for this series, I put the best possible team together, and even Alvarez still trying to catch up to speed is going to give you a better at-bat than Hayden Sanger. And he has the ability, if somebody makes a mistake, to still put a good swing on it and put it in the seats. Hayden Sanger, you're not going to get that type of an upside. So I would just have both of these guys join the team for this series. It's such an important and fun series. I mean, no series is uber important in April, but it's going to set the tone because these two teams could very well be the two that are going head-to-head throughout the rest of the season. And I put my best foot forward with guys that are healthy, they're cleared. For McNeil, coming off a great game, I just can't see why you'd say he needs more time. But even with Alvarez, your team is better with Francisco Alvarez than it is with Hayden Sanger. And if he has to catch up a little bit at the big league level, I don't think the at-bats are going to be any worse than what you're getting out of Hayden Sanger. With all due respect, I mean, Sanger has been a great surprise. I thought he's played extremely well, particularly defensively. He really has shown why he has been long considered the best defensive catcher in the Mets farm system. But, I mean, the at-bats aren't good. They're better than I thought they were going to be. But, I mean, he's still, rocking a sub-500 OPS. Like, I'd make the moves, but I respect whatever decision the Mets make. They know what they're doing. I'm not going to second-guess anything. Actually, you know what? If Jeff McNeil is not in the lineup against Aaron Nola, I will second-guess that. But let's talk about this series, Mets versus Phillies. I cannot wait. I'm going to tell you all about it in the next segment. First, though, a quick word from our sponsors. If you are an everyday listener to the show, make sure you become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service where you get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. You can also take part in our Locked On Mets sign photo giveaways. If you want to be Locked On Mets insider, find a link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Now, the Phillies took 2 of 3 over the weekend against the Marlins. They lost on Sunday, though, and they had jumped out to a 4-1 lead. The Marlins scored 1 in the 7th, 3 in the 8th to take a lead. The Phillies tied it up. Then the Marlins ended up winning it in extra, scoring 2 runs in the top of the 10th inning. And that is indicative of what the Phillies have been this year, a team that is great at the beginning of games. They have a really good lineup. Starting rotation is solid. Their bullpen is a real weakness. You look at their staff ERA as a whole, it's 4.29, but their rotation ERA is in the low 3s. Their bullpen has been brutal, ERA in the high 5s. It is the second worst bullpen ERA in all of baseball. The Mets, on the other hand, have the third best bullpen ERA in baseball. They have the best starters ERA. Granted, their starters aren't going as deep into games as a team like the Phillies, But you put it all together, and the Mets still have the best staff ERA in baseball at 2.35. Now, looking at the records, I should have mentioned that the Mets have a 2-game lead in the National League East right now. It's early. It's not like we should be standing watching too much. But one thing that's interesting, both the Mets and the Phillies have been better at home than on the road. The Phillies are 9-4 at home. The Mets are 9-1 at home. On the road, the Phillies are 4-5. The Mets are 500. And the Phillies are 5-5 in the last 10. The Mets are 7-3. So if these teams hold serve with what they've been doing this year, the Mets have a clear advantage in this series because they're playing at Citi Field. When you look at the offenses, Phillies definitely have the upper edge. They are top 10 in runs scored. They are 5th in OPS. The Mets are 19th in both of those categories. They're even in home runs. They both hit 20 across their respective teams. But again, the Phillies definitely have the better lineup at this moment right now. They're getting more production, and it's partially due to some guys in the bottom of the lineup, Edmundo Sosa, Johan Rojas, that are performing over their heads a little bit. It's also because they've gotten good production from Kyle Schwarber, who has 7 home runs on the season, and OPS 1 point over 1,000, 16 RBIs. Bryce Harper, Nick Castellanos, they've each driven in 14. Harper has a 910 OPS, Castellanos a 858 OPS, and he's starting the year hitting 304. So again, Phillies lineup, definitely a strength. Bullpen is a weakness. Rotation is solid. So what's going to be the real keys to this series? To me, it's 2 things. One, can the Mets lineup work the Phillies starters early and get them out of the game and get into the underbelly of that Phillies bullpen? Jordan Romano has been brutal this year. Absolutely brutal. And, they have Jose Alvarado's pitching great, but that's, in some ways, that's all they have. So the quicker you can get the starters out of the game and get into that bullpen, the more taxed they're going to be throughout the series, and the better off you're going to be. If the Phillies starters are able to carve through the Mets lineup and keep their pitch count down, and they're getting through 7 innings, well, that's going to make it so much easier on a weak bullpen to close out some games. So the first big key is working those starting pitchers out of the game. On the other side of it, when it comes to the Mets starting pitchers, can they survive the first couple of innings? That's a real key to watch, because the Phillies could absolutely jump on some Mets starters. It wouldn't shock me. And that would put the Mets in a hole that they might not be able to come back from. They want to be able to turn it over to that bullpen. So can you get 5 and dive starts at least where you're holding on to a lead? Because once you get into that Mets bullpen, I think that's where you have a huge advantage late in games. So if these games are close late, I think the Mets have a real edge. But I also could see it going the other way, where the Phillies can jump out early and the Mets might not be able to recover. So those are the things I'm watching for in this series. But ultimately, I'm just excited to see what it all looks like. Tonight, Aaron Nola versus Tylor Megill. Fortunately for me, I'm not going to be able to watch this game until much later, because I want to wish a very happy birthday to my lovely and beautiful wife, and I'm going to be spending the day with her. So I'm not going to be watching this game until maybe even when she goes to bed, and then I'm going to start it from the beginning and watch the whole thing. And it might be a late night for me because I want to watch this whole game. So I'm going to watch it, but it's probably going to be late. And I'm going to be doing I might put my phone on airplane mode. Who knows what I'm going to do today? But game 1 tonight of this really exciting series, Aaron Nola versus Tylor Megill. Nola has an ERA of over 6 this year. I think it was 6.65. I didn't mark that in my notes here, but an ERA over 6. 2 bad starts. His first start was really bad. 2 starts in the middle were okay. Last start was also bad. Gave up 7 runs, 6 of them earned on 9 hits, 4 walks against the Giants. You look at the matchup for the Mets. Pete Alonso has given Aaron Nola fits. He's 17 for 52. That's a 327 career batting average against him. He's hit 6 home runs. Juan Soto has walked 15 times in 53 career plate appearances against Aaron Nola. That is 28% of the time. He has 3 home runs against him with an OPS over 1,000. So what does that mean to me? Aaron Nola wants no part of Juan Soto. He's going to pitch around him, and that's going to put the bat in Pete Alonso's hands with runners on base and a chance to do damage. I like that as an outcome for the New York Mets right now, with the way Pete's swinging it. Brandon Nimmo has done okay against Nola. I believe he did get him for a home run in September last year in that game where I think Lindor got hurt, if I'm not mistaken. But Nimmo, 2 home runs in his career against Nola, 777 OPS. So a decent matchup for him. Tough matchup for Lindor. Career 194 hitter against Nola with a lifetime 506 OPS. Meanwhile, Starling Marte has had plenty of success, 333 lifetime batting average. Jesse Winker, 192. So the Mets might go right on right today with Starling Marte in that DH spot. I already told you about Jeff McNeil's career numbers against Nola, hitting well over 300. So I'm hoping that he's back and he's starting at second base. And then third base is going to be the question mark if Vientos is good to go or not. If he's not, because of Beatty's past struggles, I wouldn't mind seeing Acuna get his first start of the season at third. But also, I had understood that the Mets went with the more experienced defender at that position to give Tylor Megill the best defense possible. I mean, granted, that might mean Acuna playing second, but I think if they go with Beatty at third, McNeil at second, they're in a good spot. If McNeil really does go back down, then obviously you'd be starting Acuna and Beatty, probably unless Vientos is finally cleared to go. When it comes to Tylor Megill in the season, he's got a 1.40 ERA. Surprisingly enough, the Phillies have not done very well against him. Memory serves, and I was in the ballpark for it, so I should remember this. I believe it was the Phillies that came into town when Tylor Megill was part of that combined no-hitter. I'm going to be so mad at myself if I'm wrong. I'm going to look this up right now. I think I'm right. It'd be so bad if I'm wrong because, again, I was there for it. So, yes, it was against the Phillies. And so he has really good numbers against the Phillies. No one has really seen him too much where it's drastic, but JT Realmuto is the only one that's hit a home run off of him. And for his career against the Phillies, for all the hitters in there on their roster right now, their OPS collectively against Tylor Megill is 545. So big start for Tylor to step up and beat Aaron Nola. And really, I look at this game as the one where I think the Mets have a pitching advantage, which is a little crazy to say because I'm saying there's an advantage with Tylor Megill against a guy that has been consistently one of the better starting pitchers in baseball, and Aaron Nola. He's always routinely pitching to a 3.5 ERA. I think his career ERA against the Mets is in the 3.4s. At Citi Field, it's even better. I think it was in the 2s. I think he's pitched very well at Citi in the past. But because of the struggles he's had this season, because of the guys in the Mets lineup that have seen him well, and also because of how well Tylor Megill has looked in his career against the Phillies and so far this season, I think this is the game where the Mets have a pitching edge. You go to game 2, it's Christopher Sanchez versus Griffin Canning. Can't necessarily say the Mets have an advantage there. And then game 3, we're going to get to see Zach Wheeler, unfortunately, return to that Citi Field mound. He'll be going up against David Peterson. I'll be previewing each game of this series as we move through it. So I'll get more into some of the head-to-head stuff with Sanchez, with Canning, with Wheeler, Peterson, all that good stuff. But it's going to be really exciting to see these two teams get that first matchup of the season. There's always something unique about seeing your division rival for the first time, seeing these two teams get a look at each other across the diamond and go head-to-head. Last time they met, it was on that same field. Game 4 of the NLDS, where the Mets were able to clinch at Citi Field for the first time franchise history. You know the Phillies are going to be going into this series with a chip, if not a boulder, on their shoulder. They're going to want to get some revenge on the Mets. The Mets are playing great baseball, and I'm excited to see what Juan Soto is going to do in this series because it is that first really exciting, all eyes on you, tough divisional matchup. And he did throw a little cold water on it. He said, it's just another series, and we're just trying to win series after series at this point. It's so early to be worrying about teams in your division. But there's going to be more buzz in the clubhouse for this one. And I'm excited to see with the way Soto's been swinging lately, what he can do to make an impact and make his presence felt. It's going to be a lot of fun to see these two teams match up for the first time. And we get 3 games to start this week that are going to be so much fun to watch. For me, going to be a little bit late tonight. For all of you, I hope you enjoy that, whatever it is, the 7:10 start. And we'll see how this thing goes as the Mets take on the Phillies for the first time. The good news is you win one game, you're going to leave this series with a division lead. So win tonight, and you will be guaranteed to come out of this not being behind the Phillies in the division, as they still have, as I mentioned before, a 2-game lead going in. And if they win one, they're only going to lose a game of ground in the division. But the hope is they keep the good vibes rolling at Citi Field. They improve upon that 9-1 record at home, and they beat the Phillies in this first series and send a clear message that this is a year for the New York Mets, and they are not going to be an easy team to knock off the top of this division. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's show. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day, not for your second watch. Head over to YouTube and check out the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports. Talking about Locked On Sports Today with our local hosts from each team, league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.